It's built into us to be present, to be calm, to be clear, open, intelligent, articulate, strong, willing. I could go on. There's hundreds of characteristics, but they're all built into us naturally. And when we're not overthinking things and our mind is calm and balanced, we will manifest and express those qualities as the moment needs. And leadership needs a foundation of that. So what gets in the way of our natural psychological health is basically our own thinking and all of the reactions that we have to our own thinking and all of the reactions that we have to our reactions to our reactions to our thinking.
Välkommen till podden Human Change med Daniel Magnusson. Fastnar du ofta i tankar kring oro, stress och irritation? Tror du att allt beror på att det är fel på dig? Då vill jag välkomna dig till podden som guidar dig till förståelse om hur vi människor fungerar egentligen. Genom denna förståelse kan vi leva ett liv fullt av kärlek och harmoni. Ditt ljus och hopp när allt verkar mörkt och hopplöst. Så låt nu Daniel guida dig till den stillhet vi alla letar efter. Där slutstationen är välmående och glädje. Lyssna och njut.
Välkommen to Human Change med mig Daniel Magnusson, and I will switch to English because today I have a English speaking guest. It's Ken Manning, and Ken Manning has been interested in finding simple solutions to help people to be at their best for as long as he can remember. And he pursued 3 degrees in psychology from Brown University, Lesley College, and the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And he practiced as a clinical psychologist for 20 years. And he also, in 1999, began innovating ways to bring insight principles into the corporate world and joined with his partner, Robin Charbit, to form their company, Insight Principles. And he's been married for 37 years and has 2 stepdaughters, a son, and 5 grandchildren. Like, that's the 5 different kind of desserts, right, in life. I heard some say. And he plays the piano and also loves to be outdoors and do all kind of sports, exercise, and travel, photography, and woodworking also. And spending time, of course, with family and friends. So very welcome, Ken. It's very nice to have you here, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Daniel. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you. And I also want to mention that what I can remember, I did started reading a book that you wrote together with Robin Charbit and also Sandra Crott, Invisible Power. And it's an undertitle, all right? So The Invisible Power, but you know that better than me, right? Insight Principles at Work. Everyone's hidden inner capacity.
Yes.
Yes. And it's in Swedish also. If you're listening to this and live in Sweden, you can order it. It's called Den osynliga kraften. And the best way is to go to Martin Järnland's webpage and order it from there. So, and you also had done a TEDx talk.
I did, yes.
Yeah. You've done a lot of things in life.
I've done a lot of things, yes.
So when did you come across the 3 principles or the insight principles?
In 1992, I was introduced by a friend. Went out to a training with the Pranskys and had quite a hit.
Yeah. And what did that hit do for you?
Well, it blew my mind and messed me up in a big way. I had just finished 12 years of training in traditional psychology.
Mm.
And I had a full psychotherapy practice. And I spent the 4 days in the training trying to explain to the presenters that it was a lot more complicated than they were telling me.
Mm.
And I didn't really felt like I got anything out of the training at all. And when I left, I realized I was very impressed with how gentle and kind and courteous they were with me, who didn't really deserve it.
Mm.
And I left, and my friend Paul was driving me to the airport. And he turned to me, he said, "Well, what did you get from the program?" And I started telling him some of the things that I just said. And then it was actually a bright sunny day, and it was like the sun, all of a sudden the sun came out and it hit me like a ton of bricks, what they were talking about. And I had this really big insight. And the huge insight that I had was that everybody's fine.
Mm.
And I had just come through 12 years of training on what's wrong with people.
Mm. Wow.
And then I had a second insight, which was that I was out of a job, because I figured, well, if everybody's fine, I don't need to fix them, which is what I was trained to think for 12 years. So I was a little depressed there because I realized everybody's fine and I don't have a job, which I just spent a lot of money and time becoming professional at. But then I had a third insight, which was, well, everybody's fine. They just don't know that they are. So then I realized I do have a job. It's just not the one that I thought I had.
Mm.
So that was my introduction to the principles.
Mm. So what happened afterwards, after that, when you landed back home then?
Well, I landed back home and I started actually this was before we had the language that these are three principles. We didn't start really talking about them as principles until later in the 90s. So I really didn't know what to say to my clients, but I could just see something different. I could just see them. I was just seeing my clients in a different way.
Mm.
So I really didn't know what to say, but I'd sit there with my clients, seeing that they were just, I guess, overthinking things, or just they didn't realize the power of thought. And this is another one of my insights. I realized after this initial training, nothing in my 12 years of training ever described what psychological health actually is. And there was nowhere in any of my thousands of pages and thousands of hours of training was there ever an explanation of what thought actually is or how it works. I thought, geez, I'm in the mental health field, and then nothing in the mental health field explains mental health or how thinking works. It's like, really? This is unbelievable. So there I'm sitting with my clients, just kind of seeing health and seeing thought. I really had no idea how to talk about it. But they would invariably, my clients would come back a week or two later and say, Dr. Manning, that was a great session. I feel much better. I don't think I need to see you anymore. Mm. And then in my head, I said, well, great, but tell me what happened? What did you see? What did I do? Because we didn't have much of a language. I became, shortly after that, I became part of a faculty. It was called The Faculty. We tried to figure out how to make this into a language and a teaching and a school of psychology, which we worked on, pretty hard in the 90s. But I basically killed my practice because everybody went off happy and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was sitting there wondering, well, what am I going to do now? But then people started sending me everybody they knew, whether they had problems or not. So I've been pretty swamped ever since. But it took a while to actually figure out what to say. It was a whole different kind of therapy. And then I tried to get my clients back, who I had seen before, to tell them I had this new science I wanted to share with them. And some of them came.
Yeah, so the previous client before you got this understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, I can imagine, and also, I believe that when we start to see the depth of this and how impactful it is, it's easy for us to like holding on and like, no, it can't be true. I have to give so much up. I done all this training, and I can just look for myself, like with all the training and books that like shake my world a little bit when I stumble on this. And I say stumble, it was like just listening to a video training with Michael Neal. And it's like, what? Never heard about this before. How come I haven't heard about this before?
Yeah.
And so like, just like, okay, it challenged all the things, more or less all the things I learned before about psychology and how we function and all the things that we need to do to feel okay and so on. So I think that is holding back people a lot, not opening up for new possibilities to see things, because it seems too simple, as you said, right? It's like, oh, no, we're complicated, right?
Right.
But we aren't.
Right. Well, I certainly had a lot of that to go through myself.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Right.
And finding ways to, as you said, like to describe and talk about it, and also like, oh, okay, we're done and you're leaving? No. Interesting. And then in 99, then you started working with Robin Charbet and approaching more businesses?
I started working with businesses before Robin. I met Robin in 2007.
Okay.
Yeah, I started some of my clients started inviting me into their businesses to help share what they'd seen, and there were another consulting company started to get ideas of this, which I joined with them. So I got some big corporate clients, and I did some work with them. Then I met Robin a little bit later, and then we started our company.
And what did you do at businesses? What do you do with businesses today, and to implement this, or to help people to understand the implications of it in business?
Well, we first have to get them interested in looking at how the mind is operating. Most people in business are not looking in that direction. There are a lot of leadership trainings, personality assessment tools. There's a lot of psychology in business, but it's all primarily spin-offs from traditional kinds of psychology. People know that they can behave better or think better, or have different styles or have different types of personalities they have to accommodate to. These are sort of the main psychologies that are popular in business.
Mm-hmm.
And they're good, they're effective, they're useful. So we can, when people have some experience with those thought streams, you might say,
Mm-hmm.
It's a little of a bridge to explain to them, listen, there's a deeper science to understanding the mind, and it's a lot simpler, but it's actually much more impactful and effective. So often we can have that conversation with people and then explain to them, why that works.
Mm.
But then there are a lot of people who have no experience whatsoever looking at themselves or the mind at all. And then we can explain to them, well, listen, there's a very simple science now, so you don't have to get all wrapped up in a lot of personal mental complexity to learn about how the mind works, which is a relief to people.
Mm.
And then we start explaining it to them in a way that is hopefully digestible and simple.
Mm.
And we've sort of cultivated for ourselves over the last 16 years, and for me longer than that, since 99. How do you do that? How do you introduce it to people? And it's always an individual conversation, because you have to map what you're wanting to share with them to how they think and the language that they use. Am I answering your question?
Yeah. Because I've been in business and helping businesses and also done a lot of tests myself, these different kind of assessments and everything from DISC and different kind of other assessments. And it's a lot of focus on behaviors, and of course, right? Because you want to see how you can change the behavior, and then you want to know what kind of behavior do you have and how do you communicate and so on. And that makes sense in some way to do it and focus on it. And I can also see for myself how I have struggled to change the different kind of behaviors and trying to fit in and so on, and working on myself, and like an endless way of working just to both fit in sometimes, but also feel okay with myself.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say is the difference in this sense when you coming with this approach? What kind of revelations maybe or insights and implications do people experience when they get a better understanding in business?
Well, there are lots of answers to your question. So if I go back to what you said about behaviors, if you're looking to change behaviors, how would you do it? You have to convince people that they should change their behaviors. So how would you do that? Well, you can say to them, listen, please change your behaviors. And they go, thank you very much. And they go off and they do the same thing.
Yeah. Now I provided feedback at least, right?
So if you look at the logic behind it, you realize that, well, what's going on in people's heads determines what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on in people's heads that causes them to do what they do. And if you want to change their behavior, you have to change what's going on inside their heads. Right?
Mm.
So what's visible to people in terms of what's going on inside their heads is usually that they have certain kinds of feelings about things, and they have some thoughts about things. So if you try to get people to change their thinking about things, so let's say you convince them that doing certain safety measures before engaging in certain kinds of work is a good idea. And they really get it. It's a really good idea.
Mm.
And then they say, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then they go back to work and they don't do it.
Yeah. Reminds me, I worked at Orlando Airport. That was my first job when I was around 20, 21. And of course, when you work around we work with loading bags on airplanes and freight. And of course, when you're working around an airplane, it's a lot of safety, a lot of security, but definitely safety. And this was before 9/11 and everything. So, but anyway, a lot of safety. People knew they should do things, but they didn't.
Right.
And then I think that's a good, just with safety in itself, I think it's easy to understand, yeah, of course you should do this. You could hurt yourself or someone else. So it's a good example.
Yeah. So people go back to work after the training and they do the same old.
Mm-hmm.
So then you ask, well, why is that? They had the idea. They were willing to change their thoughts, but then it didn't happen. So what else is there? Well, if you look at the deeper nature of things, is people behave the way they do because of how they feel. They have the idea they should do something, but they really don't feel like it. Or they feel like something else is actually more important. Or they're lazy, or they have other feelings, right? So it's really people's feelings that are crucial that generate their behaviors. And unless you can change the thinking that generates those feelings, the behavior won't change. So you can give people new ideas, but if their deeper thoughts that create their feelings don't change, they won't behave any differently. Right? So now how do you change those deeper thoughts? Well, there's a science to it. It's called the 3 principles. And how do you apply that? How do you apply that science in business? Well, what we see is that there's a living wisdom and there's a deeper living intelligence in people that's operating behind the scenes that will upgrade a person's mind to the situation that they're in if they allow that deeper intelligence to do the upgrading inside themselves. But very few processes or educational processes or workshops get to that level.
Yeah.
So we create a process in business where we create the space for people to be curious about how their mind works. We get them quiet enough to look at the science of how the mind works. And we show them that there is this deep living intelligence inside of them. And that deep living intelligence will produce what we call insight. And insight is the process where your own wisdom on the inside of you shows you a different reality than the one you habitually think for yourself.
And I would say there is nothing more powerful than that.
There's nothing more powerful than having someone realize they have this wisdom inside of them, be willing to allow it to come into their own feeling and experience, and then see the world in a different way, and to see themselves in the world in a different way from the inside. That's what insight is. It's seeing something from the inside with new wisdom and new intelligence. So we show that to people, that they have this power inside of them. And then in the case that we were talking about a minute ago, let's say we're in a safety training with people. We've done a lot of work in safety, in organizations around safety, in companies where they have, fatalities because of, inattention and other things. So we will show this to people, and then we'll have them take some time after they've learned this and they're in a inwardly receptive space with themselves. We have them look at the issues, safety issues, behavior issues, teamwork issues, leadership issues. And in that space of openness and calm and revelation, they have the insights that they need. And those insights then change how they feel about what they're doing, because they see the reality of what they're doing from a different place.
So
I'll give you another example. So we were brought into a company who had a $100 million gap in their plan for what they needed to accomplish for the coming year. They got their whole leadership team together. I think this is in the book, but I don't know.
Yeah, I recognize it. Yeah.
Yeah. They got the whole team together, and they could only come up with $30 million of ideas, which doesn't translate into $30 million. These are just ideas. And we got them into this very quiet space with a knowledge of how the mind works and how insight can happen from your own wisdom on the inside. And in the next 24 hours, they came up with $435 million of ideas, and they actually made 92 of the $100 million they needed the next year. Extra on top of what they already had planned. So it's a simple science, but it's very powerful. So in business, what we do is we get to know a client and what they're needing for their business. And then we partner with them, say, we'll help you accomplish that. We'll help you accomplish what you need for the business. But we're going to do it by teaching your people the principles.
And I can imagine many people looking like, oh, okay, shouldn't we teach leadership and then sales and the nitty-gritty and techniques and models? Or
well, the thing that we have going for us is we've been so successful so many times, we have a good reputation.
Yeah.
And then we tell our companies, we say, listen, if you're not happy with what we do, don't pay us. And we've done that from the beginning. We said, listen, pay us what you think what you think we deserve. We've always gotten paid our full fee.
Yeah. And this is, I'm just thinking about when we try to change behavior, like we give feedback and making people aware of it. It's a good step, right? To make someone aware of their behaviors, because sometimes they aren't, right? But
well, if it works, it's an easier strategy.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Sometimes, yeah, but they get some insight and like, oh, I had no idea. Oh, I totally understand. And then they see somebody's view of themselves, and then they might change, right? That can happen.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But that's, once again, it's the insight and really having the willingness to actually change also.
Right.
So there needs to become a shift, because I guess because otherwise we can feedback ourselves to death. Maybe, I don't know. Feels like it anyway.
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't happen at the level of insight, it won't be sustainable. We can try on a new behavior, but unless we've had the insight that really changes the way it looks to us, the old will come back.
Yeah. Definitely. And I can look for myself or see for myself how it changed to get insights of this understanding, and also how quick I can notice, not always, but sometimes, when I'm out of course, like
Sure.
falling back into things or behaviors, and also like, wait a minute, I'm catching myself much earlier, at least I would say. And in leadership, for example, to lead people as a manager or team leader or something like that, what kind of implications or how does that change by coming having a deeper understanding of the insight principles?
Well, that's a good question. And I guess there are leadership is a really big topic. I think it boils down to, in its essence, the way that we approach it is that everyone has the equipment built into them to be an excellent leader. And what it takes to be an excellent leader is a healthy mind and a good understanding of other people. So we explain to people about how the mind works so that people can actually experience for themselves what it means to be psychologically healthy. And we're all psychologically healthy when we're not overthinking things. It's built into us to be present, to be calm, to be clear, open, intelligent, articulate, strong, willing. I mean, I could go on. There's hundreds of characteristics, but they're all built into us naturally. And when we're not overthinking things and our mind is calm and balanced, we will manifest and express those qualities as the moment needs. And leadership needs a foundation of that. So what gets in the way of our natural psychological health is basically our own thinking. And all of the reactions that we have to our own thinking. And all of the reactions that we have to our reactions to our reactions to our thinking. And then all of our, and then all of the attachments and ego ideas and desires and fantasies and nightmares that are created in our mind, which were reactions to other reactions that we had in the past, to things that might have actually happened in the world, but now they live in us as our thinking. So in the theater of our minds, there are hundreds of bad movies playing, or movies that we think are good movies, but they're actually not useful. So the second thing, besides the fact that we have this innate psychological health, is that we have this movie theater, which is troubling us or confusing us or distracting us from our natural well-being. So we take leaders and we get them to see these two aspects of the human life, which is that we have this beautiful equipment, and then we have this great process for messing it up. And if you have a deep enough realization of these two aspects of yourself, it has an enormous impact in helping the leaders that we train to relax and trust themselves and watch out for what they do that gets in the way. We describe this as innate leadership and seeing our life from the inside out. That's how we language it. Because if people see deeply enough that their thoughts are creating their experience in the moment, they realize they're living in a world of their own thinking. And when people start to see they're living in a world of thinking, behind what appears to be their sensory experience of life, it changes the game. It makes the game of life look really different. And when you see that the truth of that it works this way, it settles you down. Because all of the things that you're reacting to, you realize you're reacting to your thinking. You're not actually reacting to the world. You're actually reacting to your thinking. You stop reacting to your thinking, you still have the world to deal with. But you then have this calm intelligence from which to react and respond to the world, which is a whole different game. So we show this to leaders that this is a paradigm of life change. This is not just something about new behaviors or another set of tricks to use as a manager or a leader. This is actually a deeper understanding of what the game actually is for you as an individual person in life. And when people start to see that, they realize they realize how simple it is to be themselves, to be a natural leader, and how careful they need to be not to get caught up in the complexity of too much thinking, which is very easy to do at any point, in any place in this world right now, because of technology. And then there's a third thing that leaders need to know, which is that everybody else works the same way.
I thought you were going to say that. Yeah.
So once they see these truths for themselves on the inside, and then they get the eyes for seeing, well, this is what other people are going through. Then they start to see that I really want everybody else to understand and realize what I see. Because if they don't, they're going to be up against this movie theater in their heads, and they're going to be hard to talk to.
Yeah.
So
trying to change the movies in different people's heads, right? So,
yeah,
constant struggle.
Trying to change the movies in people's heads versus having everybody present with wisdom, having an intelligent conversation. It's a whole different experience.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And for me, when you're saying that also, when we start to see that it's coming in from, we come from another place when we talk to people. We're coming with compassion for them. Like, oh, no, I can understand why they might react the way they do, because they maybe have a horror movie in their theater in some way.
Yeah. You know, everybody's innocent in that they're reacting to the movies in their head.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start to see how it actually works, you want to help them wake up to the fact that their thinking is really powerful.
Mm.
And they need to be careful about their thinking.
Mm.
You know, in all of the wisdom traditions, they all boil down to saying the biggest cause of suffering in life is ignorance.
Mm.
And it's really ignorance of how it really works. When you see how it really works, it's a beautiful system.
Mm.
Powerful, but beautiful.
Mm. Yeah, really powerful, and it's so easy to miss how powerful it is, because we're born with it, and we've been have it the whole time we're living, and not seeing that it's creating every moment and every experience we have in life, and start to see to understand actually how it works. I mean, that made a big shift in my life and in your life, and everybody who's getting to understand, like, okay, it's not the outside that is making me feel this way, or my children shouting, or my wife saying something, or whatever, right? But of course, sometimes I feel like, yeah, damn sure feels like it. And it looks like it, right? And finding some feeling humble sometimes when that happens, right? Afterwards, like, oh, my bad. and yeah. And you said innate leadership. So would you say that everybody can be a leader?
Well, we're all leaders, at least in little ways. You know, when we drive a car, we're a leader. When we're getting dressed in the morning, we're taking a leadership role. When we're being a parent, we're in a leadership role. When you're in a leadership role running this podcast. I'm in leadership roles when I'm teaching groups, you know, about this. We all have times that we're leading.
Mm.
And it's often, you know, just seeing what's needed and doing the right thing, or seeing what other people need and helping guide them to do the right thing, or seeing what an outcome needs to be and helping other people see what the outcome needs to be. I mean, we're in leadership roles all the time.
Mm. Yeah.
If it was a learned skill, the species would not have made it this far.
Probably not. Who started?
All right.
Yeah. Definitely. And it's very common, of course, talking about self-leadership and so on. And I think and I believe that, like, yeah, we all have this capacity to be a leader, not just for ourselves, but also for others. But some of us does not enjoying doing that. But I think some people definitely would like to, but they feel limited, or they don't believe that they have the knowledge or skills or capacity and so on. And that is, of course, according to me, and like a lot of thinking they are believing in that moment. When if they let go of it and felt secure, and they could show up in a totally different way. So I think
true.
that, and then that's why I think it's so, fun, definitely fun to both know this and coaching from this premise, and working with clients when they come and they want to, I want to do this and this and this, and then like working and getting them to becoming more safe and secure in themselves, and then suddenly all the other pieces of the puzzle solves themselves more or less, because they more or less, it's no struggle anymore, or because they can just, as I say, be themselves. And as you said, like everyone else is working the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking, you're teaching this and to different kind of groups. That is, do you, because I know you're teaching groups to bring this understanding out to companies and work with companies and so on. Do you also train companies at the moment also, and like going in and teaching it, or do you just work with groups that is going to teach it? Long question, sorry.
Well, we do a lot of individual leadership development.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of training of their teams. Then there are leaders in those teams that have teams. So we end up, going 2, 3, 4 layers into a corporation, teaching teams. And now we're beginning to do programs to roll out the understanding to the masses. So we're developing a system for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
We also train people to train others in these principles. We do that for the public. We do it for coaches and consultants. So we do a lot of training for people who want to bring the principles into businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And then in businesses, where in some cases we have trainer of trainer programs where we help them cultivate the internal capability of spreading this in their company without us. So we do the training of trainers also.
Interesting. And I'm thinking we're coming to the end today. So if I'm gonna put the links to the website, to both your websites in the show notes, for the one with the train the trainer training, and also the other one for the company website.
Thank you.
So if someone else would like, is a listener would like to come in contact with you, or have any questions regarding the programs, what would be the best way to reach you?
Just an email would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on WhatsApp. But really, an email is the best way to go.
Yeah, yeah. So I will put that email in the show note too. Yeah. And I also will put in the TEDx talk. That is really good. Okay. Yeah, I like that. And also link to the book, and I really can recommend, because it's interesting just to read the stories about the how it affected businesses. It's really interesting. Yeah.
We had fun writing that book.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. I can imagine. And fun doing these work with companies and corporate organizations.
It is. It's really, really rewarding.
Yeah. I mean,
see their lives change and their businesses improve. It's really nice.
Yeah. And the good thing is you don't put off your corporate costume when you go home as a leader, right? Or as an employee, right? You bring that with you wherever you go, and impacting lives. So that's so, I mean, so beautiful in some way how people's lives is getting a good effect of this understanding when people start to understand. So so what would you like to say to the listener as the last thing they hear before we end the show? And before we do that, I just want to say thank you very much, Ken, for taking the time, and really honored to have this conversation with you. And it's interesting to see your mind-blowing shift when you came across this, and also hear how you work with the organizations. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. It's been really fun.
Yeah, likewise. So what would you like to say to the listeners as a finishing thing?
Just have a lovely life and don't overthink it.
Tack för att du har lyssnat på det här avsnittet. Är det så att du uppskattar den här podcasten, så får du självklart dela den vidare till dem du tänker kan ha ett behov av att lyssna på den. Det finns också en möjlighet för dig att boka in sig på ett kostnadsfritt coachingsamtal med mig. Det finns inga förbehåll att du måste ha tankar om att bli coachad, utan du kanske har en frågeställning, bara så här: det här skulle vara intressant att bolla med Daniel. Så kan jag hjälpa dig på något sätt, så gör jag det mer än gärna. Skicka frågan till mig på daniel@humanchange.se. På hemsidan hittar du även videokursen Nyckeln till stressfrihet. Det är en videokurs som jag tillsammans med Angelica Almqvist har skapat, och det är ett program då för dig som vill ha ett stressfriare liv. Och några vanliga effekter som man kan se efter det här är då minskad stress, oro, frustration och psykisk ohälsa, ett ökat lugn, välbefinnande, sinnesro med mera. Tack!